The pulse in her womb, a shrill alarm, sliced through the sterile silence. Embryo detected. Viable. The words blinked across the holographic monitor, bathed in pale blue light, as if the machine itself couldn't believe what it was showing. Inside the glass chamber, Siraya stood frozen, shoulders tense, long silver hair cascading down her back like silk spun from starlight. Her lavender skin, smooth and iridescent, paled beneath the flickering lights. Her eyes widened, pupils dilating. To vertical slits, this is. "Not possible," she whispered, voice cracked with disbelief. The human doctor on duty, Dr. Mason, blinked twice, unsure whether to panic or prepare a press release for the history books. He adjusted his glasses, checked the readings again, and then slowly backed away, as if he'd just uncovered a bomb that was politely ticking. "You're pregnant," he said, struggling to meet her eyes. 4 weeks along, the embryo is developing faster than we'd normally expect, but the vitals are stable. Siraya, I thought your species... We are infertile by design," she hissed, not at him, but at the universe itself. "Genetically purged. My kind cannot, should not, conceive, especially not with a human." Just outside the med-chamber's observation window, Evan stood motionless, his hand pressed against the glass, his expression unreadable, a man caught between shock, wonder, and fear. He wasn't a scientist. He didn't need confirmation from a machine, but he felt something, deep in his gut, something primal and terrifyingly beautiful. A heartbeat. Siraya turned toward him slowly, her arms wrapping protectively around her midsection. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "You touch something inside me, something that was never meant to wake." 20 minutes later, the med bay had been locked down. The AI security system had red-flagged the pregnancy as a biological anomaly and notified the Embassy Council of Interworld Relations. Protocols were now in place. Visitors quarantined, files encrypted, and most alarmingly, a diplomatic shuttle had been authorized. "Siraya, you have to tell me what's going on," Evan said, pacing their private suite. "You've barely spoken since the scan. Is the baby in danger? Are you?" She sat on the edge of the bed, cradling her stomach. Not, yet visibly showing, but visibly altered. She looked lit from within, as if starlight had begun to ferment in her veins. "Not danger," she murmured, "but not safety either." Evan knelt beside her. "Talk to me. I deserve to know." She met his eyes, the usual serene aloofness of her species cracking just slightly. "You must understand, in my world, marriage to a human was already a disgrace, a symbolic punishment. My people believed I would never be able to bear an heir. It was safe, politically convenient." Evan blinked. "Wait, a punishment?" She flinched. "They called it diplomacy. I called it exile." His heart sank. "So this was arranged." She hesitated. "At first. But that changed." Her hand reached for his. Hesitantly. Honestly. It wasn't much. But in Siraya's culture, it was more intimacy than most ever showed. Her palm rested against his, her warmth almost buzzing. "I never thought I could feel so much," she whispered. There was a ping from the console on the wall, a high-priority diplomatic transmission. Siraya's spine stiffened instantly. The glow in her eyes dimmed. "It's her," she said flatly. "My mother." Evan frowned. "The High Matron," she nodded. "She's on her way. She'll be here in less than an hour." The alien diplomatic vessel streaked through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. By the time it landed in the restricted sector of the embassy compound, black SUVs and military escorts were already in position. Protocol demanded it. Siraya stood waiting outside in the compound's courtyard, cloaked in a heavy velvet shawl that concealed her shimmering skin. Her face was calm. Her heartbeat wasn't. The ramp descended with a low hum. Out walked Elitha, the High Matron of the Athari royal line. A figure carved of elegance and terror, her skin marked with the golden lines of elder blood, her ceremonial headdress spiraling upward like twin tusks of pearl. Behind her followed two silent guardians in full reflective armor. Elitha paused at the base of the ramp and looked down at her daughter. "You are with child," she said. It wasn't a question. It was a pronouncement. "Yes," Soraya replied evenly. Elitha's nostrils flared. "You've undone 1,000 years of control." Evan stepped forward instinctively. "She hasn't undone anything. This isn't a scandal. It's a miracle." Elitha's gaze turned on him, and he felt it physically, like pressure on the skull. "You speak out of ignorance, human. You do not know what stirs within her." Evan didn't flinch. "It's my child too." Her expression remained unchanged. "Exactly." Hours later, Soraya was placed under protective stasis, an ornamental term that sounded less like imprisonment than it actually was. She wasn't in a cell. She was in a suite surrounded by psionic dampeners, DNA locked doors, and constant monitoring. Elitha insisted it was for the good of all species. The fetus was still developing faster than human norms. Too fast. And not just biologically. Elitha's analysis had revealed dormant sequences in Soraya's DNA, ancient traits thought eradicated from their lineage, traits that had no reason to activate, unless something had triggered them, something in Evan. That night, Evan waited until the surveillance drones completed their cycle and slipped past the security checkpoint using a crude cloaking field one. Of his engineering friends had smuggled in months ago as a joke. He found her asleep, at least he thought she was. Soraya hovered a few inches above the bed, limbs relaxed but weightless, hair fanned out like a corona. The room was filled with a soft hum, like electricity murmuring beneath glass. Then she spoke, a low, guttural voice, completely inhuman. "Valte, Kulndesh, Thraya." Evan's blood ran cold. He edged closer, reaching toward her hand. Her eyes snapped open, glowing white. He froze. "Soraya?" She blinked. The light faded. She dropped back onto the bed with a thud, gasping. She clutched her head. "What just happened?" "You were floating," he said, breathless, "and speaking some language I've never heard." Her fingers trembled. "It's not a language anyone should hear. Not anymore." "What does it mean?" She stared at him and whispered, "The blood remembers." The next morning, Evan demanded answers. Elitha didn't flinch. The Ithari were once gods to primitive races. "We were not always so diluted. There was a time when our minds could shape matter, bend gravity, seed galaxies." He laughed nervously. "You expect me to believe that?" "I expect you to listen." Her voice cut like glass. "We chose to forget what we were. We chose infertility. It was the price of control, of peace, the end of dangerous evolution." Evan stared at her. "Then what does that make our child?" Elitha turned her gaze to the distant stars. "An echo," she said, "of what we once were, or what we may become again." He didn't know what terrified him more, the idea that it was all a lie, or the possibility that it was true. The secret, hidden in her blood, the power flickered across the entire compound, not a typical outage. It was silent, intentional. Elitha turned her head slowly toward the ceiling as the lights died one by one. In the room's center, a small, hovering orb dimmed and dropped to the floor with a mechanical plink. "She's awakening," Elitha whispered. "What does that mean?" Evan asked, "Is she in danger?" Elitha didn't respond immediately. She walked to the observation window where Soraya now stood, not floating, not unconscious, but fully alert. Her posture was different. Her aura was different. The faint glow from her skin wasn't fading. It was growing. Soraya turned toward the mirror, locking eyes with her mother through the one-way glass, and smiled. That terrified Elitha more than anything else. Inside the containment suite, Sirea's fingers brushed against the wall, or more precisely through it, not phasing through matter, but changing it. The molecules responded to her presence, subtly warping under her touch, like metal remembering it was once fluid. She didn't understand it, not fully, but she felt it. Her blood had become something else, or something ancient had simply reawakened, and at the center of it all was the child, still unseen, still forming, but already sending ripples through her every cell. She wasn't afraid, she was curious, and that terrified her. Elsewhere in the embassy, Evan paced the secure chamber where Earth's Interworld Liaison Council had gathered for an emergency meeting. Representatives from 6 nations and 3 alien embassies sat in tension. "She's not dangerous," Evan said. She's changing, yes, but she's not a threat." "She doesn't have to be," said Director Holt, the grizzled Earth liaison. "You've seen what's happening. Energy fluctuations, psychic interference, unexplained material distortion. If this spreads—" "She's not spreading anything," Evan snapped. "She's pregnant. She's scared." "She's a gateway," Elitha corrected, sweeping into the room like a storm, wrapped in silk. "You still fail to understand the gravity of what is forming inside her. This isn't just biology, it's ancestry. Ancient memories encoded in dormant strands. The embryo is accessing them." "You act like that's a crime," Evan said bitterly. "No," Elitha said. "I act like it's a warning." The screen behind them buzzed. Satellite data streamed in, images of an energy signature, faint but spreading, from the location of Sirea's womb, out in every direction like invisible veins through space. "Tell me," Elitha said coldly, "has she started dreaming?" Evan's blood went cold. That night, Evan snuck back into the suite. The guards barely noticed. At this point, his presence near Sirea was expected, inevitable. She was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the floor, eyes closed. She didn't open them when he entered, but she spoke. "I saw something." He moved closer. "What did you see?" She opened her eyes, and for the first time, Evan realized that even her pupils had changed. Once narrow and slitted like a cat's, now perfectly human, Earth-like, but brighter. "Not a dream," she said. "A memory, a warning. Someone else's memory, maybe even millions of years old. I was standing on a surface that wasn't a planet. It was something alive, a moon, pulsing with light. And there were others like me, only not quite." Others? They could speak across galaxies. They shaped stars with their minds, but they were afraid of something coming, something they created, but could no longer control. Evan swallowed hard. "Do you think you're connected to that?" "I think this child is," she said. Later that evening, while Evan slept beside her, Sirea whispered to the ceiling, "I know you can hear me." From the shadows near the wall, Elitha emerged. "You always were sharper than the others," her mother said. Sirea didn't turn her head. "Why did you really come here?" Elitha moved closer. "To ensure you survived the birth." "That's not true." Elitha stopped. "No, it isn't." She sat beside her daughter on the edge of the bed, her posture stiff, regal. "When I learned you conceived," she said, "I felt something I hadn't in centuries. Panic, not because of what this child might become, but because of what it meant." Sirea looked at her. "That you were wrong?" Elitha met her gaze with rare vulnerability. "That we were." There was a pause. Then Sirea asked, "What's happening to me, Mother?" Elitha exhaled slowly. "You're becoming what we feared we would become again. Unbound, evolution no longer tethered by culture or genetics. This embryo, it's not just Ithari or human, it's a bridge." "To what?" "To whatever comes." The next day, things began to accelerate. Literally, Sirea's pregnancy entered what scientists could only describe as phase acceleration. In under 48 hours, she appeared 6 months along. But the fetus showed no signs of instability. In fact, it was shielding her from harm. An experimental scan showed an energy field forming around her organs, protective, sentient, and unlike anything ever recorded. Earth's biologists couldn't classify it. Ithari scientists refused to even name it, and yet Sirea was calm, almost radiant, until the messages started. They came not through screens or sound waves, but into the minds of those nearby, short bursts of emotion, images, words from no known language, but that carried clear meaning. He is remembering. The gate opens. We return through blood. It wasn't Sirea sending them. It was the unborn child, and it was speaking to more than just its mother. One of the guards quit his post and walked outside the facility in the middle of the night. He stared up at the sky for 3 hours straight. When questioned, all he said was, "I saw it blink. The stars," he claimed. One of them blinked. Not a satellite, not a ship. Something older. Watching, waiting. In a private chamber deep beneath the Earth Embassy, Evan sat with a classified briefing file in front of him. Director Holt paced behind him. "What's this?" Evan asked. Holt looked tired. "Ashen. We've detected identical quantum resonance patterns from other regions of space. 2 known star systems. One collapsed, the other abandoned long ago. And they both had similar pregnancies," Holt said. "Alien-human hybrids. Both were terminated by force. The mothers died. The systems went dark." Evan stood slowly. "You think that's what's going to happen here?" "I don't know what I think," Holt admitted. "But the Ithari Council is already voting. If this continues, they'll declare the child a Class X variable." Evan frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," Holt said, "they'll kill it, with or without your consent." Later, in the garden chamber, Evan found Sirea again. She was barefoot in the soil, her toes digging gently into the dirt. Plants around her, even the artificial ones, leaned slightly in her direction. She radiated a strange gravity now, a gentle pull. "We don't have much time," he said. She nodded. "I know. They're going to try to terminate it." Her hands cradled her belly. "They'll try," she said. "Can you stop them?" "I won't need to." He stepped closer. "What do you mean?" She turned to face him. There were tears in her eyes, not of fear, but of knowing, of surrender to something larger. "This child," she said, "is not helpless." As they spoke, in the control room, Elitha stared at a new report flashing across her screen. Quantum activity spiking near the Earth-Moon Lagrange point. A signal was coming in, from outside known space, not a distress call, not a broadcast, a beacon, and it was pulsing in sync with the embryo's heartbeat. She turned toward the stars, heart pounding for the first time in centuries. "They found us," she whispered. The arrival. No one expected. The embassy's perimeter alarms screamed to life. Not from the Earthside defenses, but the orbital ones. A ship had appeared near the moon, not approached. Appeared instantaneously. No atmospheric entry, no propulsion trail, no communication channel. It simply was, hovering silently at the Earth-Moon Lagrange point. Triangular. Black. No lights, and completely invisible to all scanning methods, except one. Sirea's heartbeat. In the control room, Elitha gripped the console tighter. "It's one of them," she said. Director Holt stepped forward. "One of who?" Elitha didn't blink. "The precursors." Sirea awoke, gasping for air, not from pain, from recognition. She clutched her belly. The glow beneath her skin had intensified. It now pulsed in soft, rhythmic patterns, like a star breathing from within her. Evan rushed to her side. "I felt something," she whispered. "It's here." "What's here?" "I don't know. But the baby knows it. Like it's a voice he remembers from a dream." Her eyes fluttered, sweat beaded along her temples. Evan grabbed a towel and gently wiped her brow. "They're going to try and remove you from Earth," he said. "The Ithari Council is pressuring the embassy to evacuate you into orbit." Sirea's breath caught. "And then what?" "They say it's for your safety." She looked into his eyes. "They're lying. In the upper command center, the vote was swift. The Athari Supreme Council had spoken. Sirea would be extracted and held in orbit. If any sign of planetary destabilization occurred, the pregnancy would be terminated by remote failsafe. Director Holt turned away from the screen in disgust. "You think killing one unborn child will stop whatever this is?" Aelitha didn't respond. He slammed his fist on the table. "Answer me!" She stared at him, hollow. "It's not about stopping it," she said. "It's about containing the mistake." Meanwhile, scientists had begun noticing subtle changes across Earth. Tiny ones, but impossible to explain. Solar radiation dipped slightly below forecast for the third day in a row, despite no solar anomalies. Migratory birds altered their patterns mid-season. Even the northern lights flickered out of rhythm, dancing in spiral formations, all inexplicably synchronized with a single frequency, broadcast not from space, but from inside. The Earth Embassy, inside Sirea. That night, Evan crept into the secure medwing again. Sirea stood by the window, bathed in moonlight. Her skin glowed brighter now, not just gold, but streaked with silver filaments under her veins. She turned to him slowly. "I can't stay here," she said. "They'll come for me." "Then we run." She tilted her head. "Where?" "Anywhere. They can't control. You can't outrun them," she said gently. Evan stepped closer. "Maybe not, but I won't let them take you. Or our child." Sirea placed his hand on her belly. The pulse inside responded instantly, aware of his touch. "It's more than just a child now," she whispered. "It's a convergence." The next morning, Sirea was gone. Evan burst into her suite, heart racing, empty. No signs of struggle, only a glyph carved into the floor, etched in golden residue, still warm. 3 curves, 1 line through the center. It shimmered when he touched. Aelitha found him minutes later. "She left willingly," she said. Evan turned sharply. "Where?" She didn't say, only that she had to meet the ship before they did. Evan grabbed his jacket and turned to leave. Aelitha stopped him. "You'll never catch up. Not in time." "You don't get to stop me." She stared at him for a long, quiet moment, then handed him a ring. It looked like stone, but buzzed softly in his palm. "What is this?" "A key. Ethari blood will open it. Yours will trigger the beacon inside. It will guide you to her." Evan stared at her. "You knew this would happen. I feared it would, and I hoped I was wrong." He clenched his jaw. For once, hope harder. Sirea stood alone in the hills just outside the embassy zone. No guards, no lights, just the open sky. And above her, the ship, silent and unmoving like a blade of shadow. It hadn't responded to messages. Didn't move, didn't scan. It was simply waiting. She pressed her hand to her belly. "I know you hear it." The child stirred in her womb, not kicking but reaching. She felt the stretch in her mind like a gentle tide pulling her forward. The glyphs that had once appeared only in her dreams now danced in her vision, and with them came a sound. Low, ancient, a harmony. She knelt in the grass, overwhelmed. The moment she touched the soil, a beam descended from the ship, not light, not solid, something in between. It wrapped around her gently and lifted her. Evan arrived too late. He crested the hill just in time to see her form rise into the sky, swallowed by the dark geometry of the alien vessel. He shouted her name, but the air swallowed the sound. The beam disappeared. The ship did not. Instead, it opened, not with mechanics, not with motion, but with understanding. A doorway unfolded, not into the ship, but into a space that bent away from Earth. It shimmered, and Evan felt the pull. He looked down at the ring. It pulsed. Once, then again. He stepped forward. The interior of the ship didn't exist in dimensions Evan could name. He stood on a surface that had no weight, yet supported him. Lights flowed like water. Gravity shifted gently, like a heartbeat. Ahead, Sirea waited. She stood taller now, brighter. The silver filaments under her skin had spread across her entire body like constellations. Her eyes were galaxies. He ran to her and held her. She embraced him silently, then whispered, "We're not alone in here." A voice filled the space. Not words, but memory, images, emotions, flashes of a history long buried. The Ithari had once been part of something vast, an ancient interstellar civilization that had seeded intelligence across the stars. They had shared minds, traveled through dimensions, and stored their legacies in biological memory. But they grew fearful of themselves. They severed that lineage, abandoned the power, and buried the seed. Until now. Until a child born of two species reawakened what had been forgotten. This wasn't evolution. It was restoration. The child inside Sirea stirred again. This time, everyone on Earth felt it, a pulse that rippled across tectonic plates, whispered through magnetic fields, and echoed faintly in the dreams of sleeping humans. And not just humans. Birds flew strange formations. Whales sang in new tones. Computers flickered with untyped code. Children across continents drew the same symbol in crayon. 3 curves, 1 line. The glyph. Inside the ship, a presence appeared, not a being, a memory of presence. Tall, luminous, indistinct. It reached toward Sirea, but didn't touch. Instead, it touched within. Her body trembled, then stilled. A moment passed, and then the being spoke, not aloud, but into both of their minds. "He is ready." Sirea collapsed forward, but didn't fall. The ship caught her, cradled her. Evan knelt beside her, heart pounding. "What's happening?" The being responded again. He remembers. "We are coming home." Back at the embassy, every Ithari delegate stood in silence. Elitha watched the sky, eyes wide. One by one, other ships appeared near the moon. 5, then 10, then hundreds. Each one shaped differently, not designed but grown. They didn't come as a fleet, they came as a family. Drawn by one signal, one child, one impossible reunion. The child who changed the sky. The ships didn't land, they didn't need to. They hovered in silence above the earth, their massive shadows slicing across oceans, deserts, and cities. No weapons, no transmissions, no visible propulsion, just presence, an ancient presence. Global panic simmered beneath the surface. Governments activated defense protocols, scrambling fighters into formation, but no one dared to attack, not yet. The fear wasn't of invasion, it was of recognition. Deep down, something in every living creature knew. These weren't strangers. They were something older than strangers, something once forgotten, now remembered. Inside the precursor ship, Evan cradled Sirea. Her body was warm but limp, wrapped in liquid light. Her skin no longer shimmered with gold or silver, it pulsed with shifting patterns like a nebula trapped beneath the surface. The being hovered near, not watching, witnessing. Evan turned toward it. "What did you do to her?" The voice echoed in his thoughts, gentle, ancient, undeniable. "We did nothing. She opened the memory herself." The child guided her. "The child is ours," Evan snapped. "He's not your experiment." The being paused. "Then he is more than child. He is bridge. He is answer." Back on Earth, chaos tightened like a noose. World leaders demanded answers. Who were these ships? Were they threats? Why had they come? And why now? Inside the Ithari embassy, Elitha met with Director Holt and 24 military observers. Her face was pale, her composure fraying. "The ships are not Ithari. They predate our civilization by millennia," she said. "We once worshipped them, until our ancestors severed the link." One general leaned forward. "What link?" She looked up, almost ashamed. "The one between mind and cosmos, between memory and biology. We used to share memory across generations, across stars." Holt frowned. "You're saying these ships are alive?" "No, Aletha said softly. Worse. They're remembering. In the sky above, the ships began to move, not closer, inward. They formed spirals, orbits within orbits, creating a pattern that stretched beyond geometry. It pulsed like a living equation. And within that pattern was a signal, a message, not in words, in instinct. Every telepathic species felt it. Some humans did too, especially children. One little girl in Saskatchewan drew the spiral in her cereal with a spoon and said, "The stars are singing." A deaf boy in Tokyo spoke for the first time in years. "The key is inside the baby." And in the Australian outback, an elder who hadn't dreamed in decades woke up crying. "They're not here to conquer," he whispered. "They're here to test." Inside the precursor ship, Soraya opened her eyes, but she didn't blink. She glowed. Her hair floated weightless. Her skin carried no temperature. She looked at Evan as if remembering him for the first time and the 1,000th all at once. "Where am I?" she asked, not confused but curious. Evan stepped closer. "Still with me. Still on the ship. You collapsed when the being spoke." "I didn't collapse," she said. "I expanded. I felt the galaxy in my veins. The silence between stars isn't empty. It's pregnant." He smiled gently. "You sound different." "I am. The child showed me a path." She turned toward the being. "And it's not just my path, it's yours too, Evan." Far beneath the ship, in the Andes Mountains, an ancient chamber opened, not by force, by recognition. A massive stone structure hidden beneath the rock for eons shimmered to life. Carvings glowed. The same glyphs Soraya had seen in her dreams, the same glyph on the ring Aletha gave Evan, except now it was spinning. Earth wasn't just reacting, Earth was activating. Aboard the ship, the being led them into a chamber unlike anything Evan had seen. It wasn't architecture, it was memory incarnate. Images floated like mist, stars birthing, civilizations rising, beings made of sound and light drifting across systems. Soraya pointed at one fragment. "That's them," she said. "The first convergence." The being nodded. Eons ago, 3 species merged through a shared child, not of biology, of resonance, a child born of contrast and alignment, one who could awaken what had been sealed. Evan's voice was hoarse. "You mean like us?" The being turned toward him. "Yes and no. Your child is not the first, but maybe the last." Aletha watched as another precursor ship silently hovered over Antarctica, aligning with the others. They weren't invading. They were calibrating. She turned to Director Holt. "They're triangulating something." "What?" "A convergence point. A planetary node buried deep in Earth. A vault." "You mean like alien tech?" She shook her head. "I mean like cosmic DNA, encoded in planetary crust, a library, a decision mechanism." "For what?" She hesitated. Then, "To determine if this planet is ready." Inside the memory chamber, the being placed a glowing object in Soraya's hands. It was small, pulsing, alive. It floated above her palms like a seed made of starlight. She stared at it. "What is it?" The being answered without words. The knowledge flooded her. She gasped. "It's my son's inheritance." Evan stepped closer. "What do you mean?" She turned to him slowly. "This isn't a child, Evan. He's a key. His birth isn't about genetics. It's about timing. When he's born, the signal inside him will decide Earth's future, whether we reconnect or get left behind forever." Evan stared at the glowing seed. "And if Earth's not ready?" The being's voice grew softer. "Then the memory will go dark again, for another 1,000 cycles. On Earth, storms gathered, not from weather, but from resonance. Auroras exploded over the equator. Animals went silent. Humans began having collective dreams of starships and unborn children holding worlds in their hands. In a hospital in Paris, every premature infant born that hour let out the same first cry, a note in perfect harmony with the signal pulsing from the precursor fleet. Earth was listening, but would it understand? Inside the ship, Evan and Siraya stood hand in hand. She looked at him, tears in her eyes, not from fear, but from the weight of truth. "I'm scared," she said. He kissed her forehead. "So am I. But you're not alone, and he's not alone." She looked down at her belly. "He's growing faster now." The ship pulsed softly. A countdown, not in numbers, in meaning, and then a ripple of cold. The ship's interior dimmed. The being turned sharply, if such a being could turn. "Something is coming." Evan tensed. "What?" Elitha's voice echoed suddenly from the ship's comlink, her voice trembling. "We just detected another ship entering the system, but it's not like the others." Siraya stiffened. "Not a precursor. No, it's Ithari, but not ours, not the embassy. A black code ship. That means military rogue." Evan clenched his fists. "They're going to try to stop the birth." Elitha's voice came again. "They're not coming to stop it, Evan. They're coming to steal the child." The race for the starborn. The stars flickered like warning beacons. The rogue Ithari ship punched through the atmosphere without clearance, its black hull absorbing radar and light alike. No markings, no insignia, just raw intent. Inside the precursor vessel, Siraya collapsed again, but this time it wasn't from pain. It was from contraction. Evan caught her before she hit the floor, his heart hammering. "She's going into labor," he called out. The precursor being responded instantly, forming a chamber of light and mist that lifted her gently into the air. "Her body is ahead of schedule," it said. "The child responds to outside threats. It knows." Evan's mind reeled. He gripped the edge of the chamber, eyes wild. "They're coming to take him. We have to stop them." The being turned. "You must decide now. Birth here, in protection, or flee, risk everything, choose." Above Earth, military satellites caught images of the rogue Ithari ship descending rapidly toward Antarctica, right above the ancient node that had recently awakened. Inside the UN, Command Center Elitha stared at the live feed. "They're not just targeting the child," she whispered. "They want to override the planetary vault, use the child's signal to unlock it and claim it." Director Holt looked grim. "Why would they do that?" She turned to him, cold fire in her eyes. "Because whoever controls that node doesn't just control Earth. They control every planet tied to the old network. Memory, energy, terraforming systems, star maps, trade. A galactic reset button." Exactly. Back inside the precursor ship, Evan made his decision. "We stay. You protect her. I'll hold them off." The precursor being said nothing, but the walls shimmered in agreement. Evan turned to Siraya. Her breathing was sharp and fast. Her hands trembled. "Evan," she gasped. "They'll take him. They'll use him like a weapon." "No, they won't," he said, voice breaking. "I won't let them." She grabbed his hand and pressed it to her belly. "He's afraid." Evan nodded. "Then let him feel us both. Tell him he's not alone." The rogue Ithari ship landed with thunderous silence. No weapons fired, no warnings given. Its hatch opened, and 3 figures stepped out. All wore high-collar suits woven with black plasma thread. Symbols of a time-long band in Ithari lore: military, biotech, ancient thought surge tech. The old path. One woman led them. Her skin bore red iridescence, scarred, modified, intentionally altered. Her name was Commander Virel, and she knew exactly what she had come for. "Hold your fire," Elitha barked through the UN command system. "Do not engage. We don't know what they'll do to the node." The Earth military forces surrounding the Antarctic vault were already primed, but their weapons meant nothing against the technology that just landed. Elitha turned to her comtech. "Patch me through to the precursor ship. Now!" Inside a ship, the being paused. A voice cut through the chamber. "Elitha's. Evan, the Ithari aren't here to destroy the child. They want to use him to control Earth's ancient systems. If they bind his signal to their frequency, they could override the vault. We'd become property forever." Soraya screamed. Her body convulsed. Evan snapped back. "How long until she gives birth?" The precursor's response was immediate. 7 minutes, but the Ithari are closer than 5. Evan looked to the being. "Then stall them. I need time." Outside the ship, the landscape twisted. Snow turned to mist. Ground became transparent. Virel stopped walking, eyes narrowing. Precursor interference. One of her soldiers pulled out a neural disruptor. "They're masking their location." She smiled coldly. "Doesn't matter. The child's frequency is calling. We follow that." Her eyes turned black, and she walked forward. Through rock, through air, through the veil of light, straight toward the birth chamber. Evan met her halfway. He stepped between her and the glowing arch that led to Soraya. "No farther," he said. Virel looked at him like a minor inconvenience. "You're human, barely even a variable. Step aside. I'm her husband." She raised an eyebrow. "How poetic." Then she reached for a weapon. He didn't wait. Evan lunged. They collided like planets, his punch clumsy but desperate, hers surgical and cruel. He hit the floor hard. Blood spilled from his nose. Virel stepped over him. "You were never meant to be part of this equation." Soraya screamed again. The chamber of light darkened. Lightning danced inside. The child was fighting the contractions, waiting. Outside, Virel raised her hand toward the mist wall that separated her from the core chamber. "I command you," she said, speaking in ancient Ithari. "Release the convergence." Nothing happened until a voice answered, not precursor, not Evan, but the child. A pulse of light blew through the walls. Virel was thrown backward, slammed against her own soldiers. She scrambled up, stunned. "It's already awake." Back in the command center, Aletha's console exploded with new data. "The child just rejected her signal," she gasped. "He's already linked to Earth's planetary consciousness." Holt blinked. "What does that mean?" She looked at him. "He chose us, not them." Inside the ship, Evan stumbled to his feet, vision blurry. Soraya reached toward him. The mist around her parted. He crossed into the birthing chamber, hands shaking. She screamed again, and this time light burst from her skin. Her belly glowed. "I can't, Evan. He's not just coming out. He's coming through." The precursor being surrounded her with calming fields. "Prepare." And then the baby was born. No blood. No pain, just light, pure, perfect. Glowing light, a sound filled the air, not a cry, a tone, a note that resonated in Evan's bones. The baby hovered between them, eyes open, floating in the chamber like a tiny star, and the ships above Earth all shifted, every single one. Aletha whispered, "It's complete, the memory link, the convergence." But outside, Virel wasn't done. She stood again, blood at her mouth. "Take the child," she snarled. Her soldiers advanced, but the moment they stepped forward, the ship reacted. Gravity folded, time staggered, and they were gone. Not dead, just moved. To somewhere far beyond Earth, or inside it, or both. Inside the chamber, the child floated into Soraya's arms. She held him, tears pouring down her cheeks. "He's so quiet." Evan touched the baby's cheek. "No, he's listening." The precursor being approached. "He is the key. Now, you must unlock the door." The vault beneath us. The silence after the storm was terrifying. The rogue Ithari were gone, folded out of existence by the precursor ship's defense systems. The child had been born, his skin still glowing faintly, his pulse in rhythm with the earth beneath them. But something else had awakened. The vault. Buried beneath Antarctica, ancient and forgotten, it now pulsed with the same heartbeat as the newborn, like it had been waiting. Not just for this child, but for this moment. Soraya sat in the stillness, cradling her baby. He was watching the walls, following something only he could see. Evan stood close beside her, holding one of the boy's tiny fingers. He could feel warmth, yes, but more than that, presence. "This place," he said quietly. "It knows him." The precursor being emerged from the far side of the chamber. "He has bound to the memory stream," it said. "Earth has accepted him, but he cannot hold it alone." Siraya looked up, her face still pale from birth. "What does that mean?" "The vault requires guardians, parents, anchors." Beneath the Earth's crust, something shifted. In the UN command center, the readouts turned red. Elitha stood frozen. As seismic data climbed off the charts, but no quake registered on surface monitors. "Something's opening," a technician said. Elitha knew instantly. "The planetary vault is responding to the child's frequency," she said. "But not to unlock power. It's reaching for connection." She closed her eyes. "It's asking a question." Within the precursor ship, walls dissolved, revealing the world outside. Snow and ice had melted in perfect concentric rings, revealing a spiraling pit of glassy obsidian leading deep into the earth. The vault, the precursor turned to Evan and Siraya. He must go. But not alone. Siraya's grip tightened. "He's only a baby." And yet not. The being paused. "He carries your DNA, Siraya, your empathy, and his father's defiance. That is why the earth accepted him. But now, you must accept your role." Evan stepped forward. What role? The ground beneath them rumbled, then settled, and for the first time, the child spoke, not with words, but with memory. A flood hit them. Evan saw visions, ancient forests, oceans forming, stars circling the sky in fast motion. He saw a planet speaking, in roots and storms. Then he saw humans, standing, falling, building. He saw war, peace, hope, and in the center of it all, a light that pulsed with both life and choice. When the vision ended, Evan was crying. Siraya was too. She whispered, "He's asking, do we accept this future?" The precursor spoke once more. "The child is the bridge. The vault is not a weapon. It's a question. Do you, Evan Carter of Earth, and you, Siraya of Ithari, accept responsibility as keepers of memory, of a world ready to awaken?" For a long moment, there was only silence. Then Evan took his wife's hand. "We were never just the parents of a baby," he said. "We were chosen to carry the memory forward." Siraya nodded. Together, they stepped onto the path. They descended into the vault. The path shimmered beneath them like molten glass. Each step they took lit up more of the walls, etched with scenes from Earth's past and possible futures. The baby floated beside them, never once crying. They reached the heart. A smooth black sphere levitated above a spiraling cradle of roots and metal. Alien and organic fused into one. When they stepped into the chamber, it began to glow. "Do you understand?" the precursor asked from behind. Evan turned to him. "Earth doesn't need rulers, it needs rememberers, custodians who won't repeat old mistakes." The precursor nodded slowly, then touched the sphere. Siraya stepped forward. She placed the baby's hand against the black surface. It melted into light, showering the chamber in warmth. Evan followed, laying his hand over theirs. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, a pulse. The vault bloomed open, and memory flooded the planet, across the world. People looked up. Farmers in Kansas paused mid-plow as a gentle tremor passed underfoot. A grandmother in Kyoto looked out her window and saw a strange aurora shimmer over the sea. In Nairobi, streetlights flickered, and for a brief second, everyone around them remembered something they'd never lived through. Dinosaurs, ash clouds, children laughing in a village now buried under Sahara sands. Not visions, feelings. The earth was remembering itself and sharing it, not to punish, but to teach. Back in the vault, the child finally closed his eyes and slept. The precursor smiled. He will remember what others forget. And when the time comes, he'll teach. Cyrea leaned into Evan. I thought I was broken, that I could never have a child. Evan held her. Turns out you were made for this one. She laughed softly through her tears. What do we call him? Evan looked down at the babies sleeping. Face, how about Orion? She smiled. He's more than stars. Yeah, Evan whispered. He's home. 6 months later, the precursor ship had vanished after the birth, buried back into the vault systems, hidden from sight. Aletha was now the UN ambassador to Earth's vault affairs, working directly with Evan and Cyrea. The child, now nicknamed Orion by media everywhere, grew quickly, but strangely. He walked at 3 months, spoke at 4. But he never spoke of himself, only others. He told stories of forgotten cities, of species once native to Earth's skies. He spoke of balance, of echoes, of roots older than stone. And always he asked the same question to everyone he met. What do you remember? Final scene, Evan stood on the same snowy cliff where this had all begun. The vault lay beneath, dormant again, but still listening. Cyrea stood beside him, Orion between them, drawing shapes in the snow. Evan turned to her. Do you ever miss the stars? She thought for a long time. I used to think they were my home. He waited, she smiled. But I was wrong. She looked at the child, now spinning slowly with snowflakes caught in his outstretched fingers. My home was the place where life chose to begin again. The end. Final lesson. True evolution doesn't come from domination or power. It comes from memory, what we choose to preserve and what we choose to let go. Sometimes the future isn't born from the stars, but from the heart of those willing to listen to the earth beneath their feet.